read, might seem to indicate that it is somewhat of a veneer for mere outward appearance. But in the same context he admonishes, "Clothe yourselves with the new personality, which through accurate knowledge is being made new according to the image of the one who created it." Col 3. 10, 12. F4. 22-24. This shows that mildness is indeed a personality trait, primarily gained as a fruit of God's Spirit through accurate knowledge and application thereof, rather than just naturally inherited. Essential for those having oversight. In his letter of instructions to young Timothy on proper care of the congregation, Paul commanded him as to handling difficult matters, saying, "A slave of the Lord does not need to fight, but needs to be gentle toward all, qualified to teach, keeping himself restrained under evil, instructing with mildness those not favorably disposed, as perhaps God may give them repentance." 2 T2. 24, 25. Here we see a similarity between mildness and long-suffering. The individual realizes why he has to deal with the difficulty. God has permitted it, and as an overseer he must handle it in the best interests of the individuals involved. He must put up with the difficulty until it is settled, without getting overwrought. Titus, another overseer, residing in Crete, was likewise counseled to remind his Christian brothers to be reasonable, exhibiting all mildness toward all men. To impress upon Titus the need for mildness, Paul calls attention to the unsurpassed love and mercy of God as manifested through his Son, calling for a forsaking of the old ways of maliciousness and hatred and following the new way leading to everlasting life. 3. 1-7. Again, Paul addresses those who are spiritually mature ones in the O Textoi Acute Miritra Longo, Military Commander 401 ed or chastised by one in authority. We may get so indignant as to leave our place of proper submission, hastily giving up our assigned position. But Solomon warns, "If the spirit of a ruler should mount up against you, do not leave your own place, for calmness itself allays great sins." EC 10. 4. Compare 3. 2. The proper attitude of calmness and mildness under discipline not only avoids further anger from the authority, but also enables us to improve our personality through keeping our temper and our assigned place, or position, and applying the discipline. This is especially true when the ruler is Jehovah God and when discipline comes through those set in authority by him. Job 12. 7-11. 13. 17. It also applies in our relationship to those permitted by God to wield worldly governing authority. Row 13. 1-7. Even when such a ruler may make a harsh demand of the Christian as to the reason for the hope he has, the Christian, while firmly putting obedience to God first, should answer with a mild temper and deep respect. 1 P 3. 15. Mile. A measure of distance. Mount 5. 41 in the scriptures middle.om, the measure in question, is probably the Roman mile 1479. 5 meters, 4,854 feet. At Luke 24. 13. John 6. 19. 11. 18. The word middle.om does not appear in the Greek text, but the distance figures are given in terms of Stadia 1 Roman Stadium 1/8 Roman miles 185 meters, 606.75 feet. In the New World Translation the figures for the stadia at Luke 24. 13. John 6. 19. 11. 18 have been converted to statute miles. For example, 60 stadia is given as about 7 miles 11 kilometers. Luke 24. 13. Miletus Middle.Lotus. A city on the W coast of Asia Minor that is now in ruins. It lies near the mouth of the Meander Mendes River and anciently had 4 harbors. By the 7th century BCE the Ionians seem to have made Miletus a prosperous commercial center having numerous colonies on the Black Sea and in Egypt. The woolen goods of Miletus became widely known. Indicative of this is the fact that at Ezekiel 27. 18 the Greek Septuagint lists wool from Miletus as an item of Tyre's trade. Miletus was also the home of famous philosophers such as Thales c. 625-547 BCE, regarded as the founder of Greek geometry, astronomy, and philosophy. In the 5th century BCE the Persians captured and destroyed Miletus for having shared in revolt, Later in 334 BCE the rebuilt city fell to Alexander the Great. During Hellenic and Roman times Miletus witnessed considerable architectural activity. An impressive ruin from this period is a large theatre built in an open field. As time passed, the city declined in importance. This is attributed to the silting up of its harbour facilities by the Meander River. Ancient Miletus seems to have been situated on a promontory extending from the east side of the Latmian Gulf. But today the ruins of the city lie about 8 kilometers 5 mi inland, and what was once the Gulf is a lake. Paul visits. It was to Miletus that the Apostle Paul came, in about 56 CE, because of wanting to get to Jerusalem by Pentecost, if at all possible, and not wishing to spend time unnecessarily in Asia Minor. Paul, apparently at Assos, decided to take a vessel that bypassed Ephesus. But he did not neglect the needs of the congregation there. From Miletus, doubtless by means of a messenger, Paul sent for the older men of the Ephesus congregation, about 50 kilometers 30 mi away. The additional time it took for word to reach them and for them to come to Miletus, perhaps a minimum of 3 days, apparently was less than might have been involved had Paul gone to Ephesus. Possibly that was because the available ships from Assos putting into port at Ephesus made more breaks in the voyage than did the ones stopping at Miletus. Or, circumstances in Ephesus itself might have delayed Paul had he stopped there. Act 20. 14-17. In speaking to the older men of the Ephesus congregation, Paul renewed o textoi acute miritra longo, milk 402 order capital punishment. He had a body of attendants serving as aides. His rank was recognized by his dress. A purple stripe on his toga and a gold ring of distinction. At one time these tribunes were elected by the people. Later the Senate and other civil or military personnel were primarily responsible for their appointment. Normally 10 years infantry duty or 5 years in the cavalry were required. Augustus allowed sons of senators to begin their careers as tribunes. Tiberius reserved the right of appointment to himself. At the celebration of Herod's birthday these commanders were among the honored guests entertained by the dancer Salome. In the presence of such men of rank, Herod felt compelled to keep his oath and so ordered John the Baptist beheaded. Mr. 6. 21-26 A military commander Chiliac accompanied the soldiers who arrested Jesus. Joe 18. 12. In about 56 CE Claudius Lysias was the military commander of the Jerusalem garrison. He was the one who rescued Paul both from the street mob and from the rioting Sanhedrin, and who wrote a letter of explanation to Governor Felix when Paul was secretly slipped down to Caesarea. Act 21. 30. 24. 22 military commanders were present in numbers when Paul appeared before Herod Agrippa II. Act 25. 23. Military commanders are also mentioned in John's vision, in the book of Revelation, as being among those against whom God's judgments are executed. Re 6. 15. 19. 18. Milk. The product of female mammals for nourishment of their young. It is also used as food by mankind in general. G 18. 8. JG 4. 19. 5. 25 The Hebrew word rendered milk usually refers to fresh milk and is generally distinguished from curds, cheese, and butter. The 32. 14. 2 to 17. 29. Job 10. 10. PR 27. 27 No distinction is made, however, between milk of cows, sheep, and goats. As 25. 4. 1 Co 9. 7 Sour or curdled milk was often mixed with honey and was regarded as a refreshing drink. David took 10 portions of milk cheese, VG2 the chief of the 1,000 when taking food to his brothers in the army camp. These portions may have been in the form of fresh milk cheese. Rotherham says 10 slices of soft cheese. 1 to 17. 17, 18. Why did the law forbid boiling a kid in its mother's milk? Boiling a kid in its mother's milk was prohibited under the Mosaic law. The 14. 21 This prohibition is mentioned twice in connection with the giving of one's first fruits to Jehovah. Acts 23. 19. 34. 26. It has been theorized that this practice had pagan, idolatrous, or magical connections. However, the evidence to support this view is not sound at present. Another suggestion is that this statute emphasizes that there is a proper and fitting order in matters that should be adhered to. God provided the milk of the mother for the purpose of nourishing her young. To use it to boil her offspring to prepare it to be eaten would be to the kid's harm and the opposite of what God had in mind when making provision for such milk. A third possibility is that this command was given in order to encourage compassion. This would be in harmony with other commands that prohibited sacrificing an animal if it had not first been with its mother for at least 7 days. 22. 27. Slaughtering both an animal and its offspring on the same day. 22. 28. Or taking from a nest both a mother and its eggs or offspring. 22. 6. 7. In prophecy. Regarding Emmanuel it was foretold. Due to the abundance of the producing of milk, he will eat butter. Because butter and honey are what everyone left remaining in the midst of the land will eat. This circumstance was to result from the devastation of Judah by the Assyrians. On account of this devastation, formerly o textoi acute miritra longo, Milo 403 truths. 1 Co 3. 2. Heb 5. 12-14 The Apostle Peter, speaking to Christians, says, as newborn infants, form a longing for the unadulterated milk belonging to the Word. For what purpose? That they might keep on growing not merely to maturity but to salvation, that is, make their calling and choosing sure for themselves. 1 Pe 2. 2. 2 Pe 1. 10 at Isaiah 55. 1. God calls on spiritually thirsty ones to buy this growth-promoting spiritual milk, which, through His undeserved kindness, they can obtain without money and without price. Mill. A simple apparatus generally consisting of 2 stones one placed atop the other, between which various edible threshed grains are ground into flour.